Good morning.
Good morning.
So as most of you know, I channel the angels for my talks, and I really never know what is going to come out until I'm up here and the words are coming out. And then I'm kind of aware of what is coming out of my mouth, but I don't retain it for later, so I record it. And it's interesting because sometimes going back to listen to the recordings, I think after I sat down, that really didn't make a lot of sense. And then I listen and I'm like, oh, that made all the sense in the world. So I miss it as it's coming through. So I have Archangel Zadkiel with me today, and I'm not used to his energy, so I'm feeling myself shake. And it's a very intense energy, and it's interesting because I always try to get an idea of what I'm going to be talking about, or what's going to come through me, I should say. And he just said, Melissa, open your mouth and I'll speak. So, good morning. I am Archangel Zadkiel. Some of you know me as the Angel of Death. That is not a darkness, it is a light that I bring. At the point of your transition, I am there to help assist. I help move you from the physical to the spiritual. Everything is energy. You are energy, I am energy. Moving energy is not as simple of a process as you might think. I help to extract the energy from the physical plane. If any of you were scientists, you might understand that a bit more. We do not need to go into detail about the hows and whys, just the understanding. As a human soul, you come here with the knowledge that you will be coming back to spirit realm. You know sometimes how you will die. Sometimes it is your choice before you arrive. I am there in the transition stages. After you incarnate, you forget your life plan, your life mission. It's as if you were making it up as you go along and don't secretly have this knowledge of where you're supposed to go, the steps that you're supposed to take. But you all know on a subconscious level. In Melissa's case, her transition was supposed to be many years ago. It's funny, I always joke that I'm 16 years past my expiration date. But due to her willingness to work with us, her soul on the higher plane decided to stay. It will be up to Melissa when she decides to transition to come home. Most of you will know ahead of time before your death scene, whether it's a diagnosis or just a sense of knowing. On a soul level, you are prepared. Sometimes humans say the most profound things days before their unknown death. There's many records of that. It's because we have been working with you on a soul level, on a subconscious level, whether it's through your dreams that you don't remember, or whether it's just little hints as things go along. Melissa has seen transitioning happen several times, and there's many more to come. I would like her to share some of her stories about her near transition and also about a close friend of hers. So I think most of you know that 16 years ago, my liver failed. And during the night before, I was very sick. And I felt myself start to leave my body 3 times. Like, I've had out-of-body experiences before, especially as a kid. So I just thought I was starting to have an out-of-body experience. And I'd feel myself slam back into my body, just as I was almost completely out. I'd feel myself rise, and I could see, I was laying on my stomach. I could see the back of my head and my back as I'm lifting up and releasing, and I'd slam back. So that happened 3 times during the night. And then the next day is when I had to call the ambulance and I was taken to the hospital, and they let me know that my liver was dead, it's not functioning, and they don't expect me to survive the next 24 hours. They sent me to Boston, and during the night in Boston, I would feel this warmth go across my body, like all of a sudden I'm laying in the bright sun. And I think that's when the discussion was going on. Do we keep her? Do we bring her home? What are we doing with her? There were so many interesting things about that process. They had sent me to Boston just in case by some miracle a liver was available and they could do a transplant. They also talked about flying in a team of doctors from California to do an experimental liver dialysis to try to keep me alive until there was a liver available. I didn't know till later that they had decided that I was too far gone to even consider doing that. So the next morning, when they told me that all of a sudden my liver started to function and heal itself, and 4 days later I'm home like it never happened, literally a miracle. When I saw the doctor, he literally shook his head and said, Melissa, sometimes in the medical field, there are things that happen that we we have a hard time explaining, but at least we have a general idea of why it happened the way it did. He said, but you're sitting in front of me right now, the picture of health, and I can't even begin to explain this. Your liver was dead, not functioning at all, till it started to function by itself. So during that time of feeling that warmth and that healing, I was ready to go. I had made my peace. There were things that I wish I had said and wished I had done, but for the most part, my daughters were going to be taken care of by my twin sister, and I was ready to go. And I can remember them telling me in the morning, oh, your liver's starting to heal, you know, you're healing, you're gonna go home, you're gonna be fine. I remember this weird sense of disappointment. What? I'm still here? I still have to do this? And I have a very happy life. I have, wonderful friends and loving family, and, I have been very blessed. But I can remember feeling this disappointment. And I think it's because I was so close to what that was like. So my friend Jamie passed, 3 years ago next month. And I remember being very devastated when I went to see her in the hospital before she was sent home for hospice. She hadn't signed an advance directive yet, and her husband said, Mel, she hasn't signed the advance directive, we really need her to do that. And so I sat on the bed with her and I held her hand and I said, James, we need you to sign this. It's going to be best for you and it's best for her husband. And all of a sudden, just one tear rolled down her cheek and she just shook her head. And I thought, oh my goodness, after months of talking about this point, and sorry if I get a little emotional, I would go do Reiki with her and I would describe what I would see on her transition. And I really thought she was prepared to go. And it was very evident that she was not ready. And that was very devastating for me. So later that afternoon, she fell asleep, and it was almost immediate. Her eyes went into the REM state, and I was hearing that they're working with her. They're helping to remind her what it's like. They're telling her what it's like to come home and not to worry about her, that she's going to be fine. So the next day, I went to the hospital to see her. She's leaving to go home at this point. What a world of difference. She had this level of acceptance and happiness and even made jokes. She was talking to her dad on the phone, who was crying, and she's like, Dad, it's fine. You're going to be fine. It's all fine. And she looks at me and she goes, she just went from like, oh my gosh, to I'm ready to go. And it was just such a better feeling when I walked in there that next day. And another story, they're showing me this too, that I'd like to share, is a friend of mine, actually most of you know Louie, when his dad passed, it was very interesting because I was working on the computer. It was when I was getting ready to buy my house, and I had to do this 8-hour online course to get a lower interest rate. So I was working on doing that, and my computer kept freezing, so I was very frustrated. And I saw this dark shadow go by me, and I thought, okay, whoever you are, I don't have time. But I did think, this is interesting. I don't typically see spirits in a shadow. So I'm still pounding away at my computer and probably cussing and swearing. And I see a shadow go by on this side of me. And I thought, okay, this is weird. And I did the gut check. All right, whoever you are, you feel good, so it's fine. You can stay around. And then I finally finished. I went upstairs. I got ready for bed, and something told me to look at my phone. And I looked at my phone, and it was blowing up with messages about how Louie's dad had passed. And immediately, as soon as I read Louie's message, I saw his dad, Carl, like right in my face. And he said, I knew everybody was going to be okay, and the door to paradise opened. What would you do? And he showed me like a dark room with just a door of white light and like the shadow of a man going through into this white light. So the next day I'm looking for something inspirational to send Louie to just kind of help ease the pain of losing his dad. And there was this quote, and it was exactly what I saw in the background. It was this black wall with this door of white light looking like a man's going through it. I didn't really like the quote, so I cropped that off. And I took a screenshot of the picture, and I sent it to Louie, and I said, this is what your dad showed me. He said he knew paradise was waiting and that you all would be okay, so he went through. And so Louie messaged back and said, wow, that's very good validation, and I'll explain later. So the next day I went up to see Louie, and we're sitting there talking, and he said, so I've got to talk to you about that picture you sent. He said, my dad came to visit me at 4:30 in the morning. He said, I saw a shadow go by my bed. And he doesn't typically see spirits in shadow either. He said, I knew it was Dad, and he said, he showed me exactly what you sent me, this black wall with this white light door with him going through it. So it's this amazing. The transition process looks much harder, I think, than it really is. I believe if somebody is very sick, like with my friend Jamie, I really feel like she was in and out during that time. She'd pop in. One day I went there, and she hadn't talked to anybody in 24 hours. She had been completely unresponsive. And so they warned me, and I just went over and I held her hand, and her eyes popped open. And I said, hi, James. I just want to tell you I love you. She goes, I love you too. And then she went right back out. So I swear that her soul popped back in just to have that moment with me. And then it's out doing its thing while the body's doing its process. And after she passed, I missed her by about 10 minutes. Her cousin had called and said, you need to get here. So I get there, and it's been about 10 minutes since her body finished its process. And of course everybody's crying, and I start to cry, and all of a sudden I see her. She's right there on my face. She goes, I'll be glad when you all stop blubbering. This is 10 minutes after the process. It's like, James, we need a minute. So the death process isn't as scary or as horrible as it looks. Let's see what else he has to say. The angels are always with you, even in the moments where it looks like they've let you down and somebody has passed. But that's when we're at our strongest, and that's when we're with you the most. We're there lending support and helping with the transition. For those who remain on the earth plane that need support of our energy, just ask. We cannot give it without the permission. Love surrounds you on all planes. The love of the angels is a constant energy source for you. You can tap into that energy source anytime you see fit. Trust your instincts and trust your knowing. You all know your purpose. You all know that life is meant to be lived, to its happiest and fullest. That is your mission in this life on this earth plane. And until next time, we leave you with the love and the blessings of the angelic realm.
Thank you, Melissa.